Chapter 3013. Faction Leader Yi is right. Faction Leader Gao, I advise you to take your faction members and leave Emerald Island forever. Otherwise, it will be troublesome to solve this matter. Liang Yonghui's eyes were sinister as he spoke slowly in a deep voice. Not only Yi Lifei and Liang Yonghui, but the other faction leaders also looked at Gao Hanchun and the other two with an unfriendly expression. Their attitude could not be more obvious. Gao Hanchun's cold gaze swept across everyone around him. He could not help but sneer and said, "Faction leaders, I know that Argentine faction's recent search for the murderer on Emerald Island has indeed harmed your interests. But it's not enough for you to pin such a big crime on our heads, right? If you're dissatisfied with me, you can just say it. But it's impossible for me to admit to such a groundless crime." Gao Hanchun's voice was loud and filled with anger. He roared at everyone present and a murderous aura erupted from him. He was not afraid to make such a name for himself on Penglai Island. Even if everyone joined forces, he would still not back down. Faction Leader Gao, now that we know the truth, what's the point of you continuing to quibble like this? Yi Lifei sneered in his heart. Thinking of Gao Hanchun's arrogant appearance in front of him, he was overjoyed to see Gao Hanchun so angry at this moment. "I'm quibbling?" Gao Hanchun chuckled. "Faction Leader Yi, since you keep saying that Argentine faction used underhanded means to recruit members, then show us the evidence. Otherwise, the consequences of slandering Argentine faction will not be so simple." Lu Jiangang and Gui Jun stood behind Gao Hanchun, their faces solemn and serious. However, they were also filled with confidence. They did not believe that the other party could produce any evidence. However, Yi Lifei's words shocked them once again. "Evidence?" Yi Lifei looked at Gao Hanchun coldly. "Faction Leader Gao, do you really think we don't have it?" Gao Hanchun's expression changed slightly and a trace of hesitation appeared in his heart. He had known Yi Lifei for a long time and knew his character very well. Yi Lifei's behavior was really strange. "Show us the evidence you have." Yi Lifei snorted and waved his hand. "Men, bring him here." In the next second, the cultivator from the Great Saiyan gang led a few people into the hall. After seeing the cultivators who were brought up, Lu Jiangang couldn't help but be shocked. "Aren't these the 7 missing cultivators of our heaven-shaking faction? I was wondering why they disappeared for no reason. So it was gang leader Yi who took them away." The anger in Lu Jiangong's eyes deepened. "Gang leader Yi, your actions are a bit too much. I went overboard." Yi Lifei laughed heartily. Then he looked at the crowd and said, "You can ask the leaders here, did I go overboard?" Liang Yonghui snorted. "If we didn't happen to discover these secrets from your gang members, I'm afraid we wouldn't know how long you'd keep them in the dark." "What secret?" Gao Hanchun frowned. At this moment, he realized that something was wrong. Yi Lifei's performance was too confident. It didn't seem like he was forcing it, but he was full of confidence. Chapter 3014. As soon as his voice fell, Yi Lifei reached out and threw a white porcelain bottle to Gao Hanchun. "Master Gao, this is the medicinal pill we found from your gang members. Take a closer look. Do you find it familiar?" Gao Hanchun took the white porcelain bottle and looked at the familiar white porcelain bottle and the 3 words, "True Qi Pill," written on it. He understood that this was indeed the medicinal pill their gang often used. Gao Hanchun opened the bottle and looked at the medicinal pill inside. His eyes flashed with a touch of doubt. This medicinal pill was clearly not a true Qi pill. "This bottle is indeed from our heaven-shaking faction, but this medicinal pill is not a true Qi pill. As for what it is, I don't know." Gao Hanchun said coldly. "We have already asked an alchemist to identify it. This medicinal pill has the effect of controlling people's minds and making them addicted. Once a cultivator takes it, they can only be controlled." Yi Lifei said slowly, his eyes deep inside, "Master Gao, I really didn't expect you to have such means. This medicinal pill is really an eye-opener for us." As Yi Lifei's voice fell, Gao Hanchun, Lu Jiangang, and Gui Jun's faces suddenly changed. "Master Yi, we have never seen this medicinal pill before. Could it be that someone is framing us?" "Gang leader Gao, you don't have to quibble anymore. Every gang sent people out to catch these cultivators. We caught 7 people in total. 5 of them had this kind of pill. You said you've never seen this kind of pill before. If you were in my shoes, would you believe it? Liang Yonghui's eyes were filled with a touch of ridicule. In his view, Gao Hanchun would not give up until the end. Even if there was irrefutable evidence now, he still wanted to quibble. This is definitely framing us. Lu Jiangang said angrily. Framing us? Yi Lifei sneered. You mean that so many of our gangs have joined together to frame your heaven-shaking faction? Second Master Lu, you think too highly of yourselves. If we wanted to join forces to frame you, why would we wait until today? In the past, our Emerald Island has always been very peaceful. But ever since your heaven-shaking faction came, you have been making a ruckus here. This old man never believes in groundless rumors. Ever since your heaven-shaking faction obtained this kind of pill, you should have been prepared to be exposed. Another faction leader said coldly. Gang leader Gao, your heaven-shaking association is not a force of our Emerald Island. We don't care what you do in your own territory, but if you want to come here and act like a tyrant, then you are wrong. I advise you to leave the Emerald Island immediately, or else you'll have to bear the consequences. The attitude of all the gang leaders present became tough. The Shocking Heavens faction had already broken the rules of the game by using such means. Now that all of them had joined forces, there was no need to be afraid of them. Gao Hanchun, Lu Jiangang, and Gui Jun were completely dumbfounded. They knew very well that this was definitely a setup. Their heaven-shaking association was able to develop all the way until now because of their own attraction. The effect of this kind of medicinal pill was so shocking that even they had never heard of it before. However, after seeing the aggressive look of Yi Lifei and the others, they already knew that this was most likely true. Moreover, under the witness of so many gang leaders, this was simply irrefutable evidence. Chapter 30:15. Gao Hanchun never thought that the situation would be so serious. Looking at the smug look in Yi Lifei's eyes, he was almost certain that this was Yi Lifei's doing. On the entire Emerald Island, no one except Yi Lifei had the ability to do so. However, Yi Lifei's actions this time really terrified him. In order to frame him, Yi Lifei even brought out this kind of pill. Even he had only heard of the existence of this kind of pill, but he had never seen it before. The other party's plan this time made him unable to defend himself. Obviously, they had planned everything and were just waiting for him to jump into the pit. With all these things connected, he had no room to refute at all. He was screwed. Gao Hanchun knew that this time, he was really screwed. He even began to suspect that the 2 fellows who had been forced to eat the true chi pill in the square were bait that Yi Lifei had released. If that was really the case, then Yi Lifei's scheming truly made him fearful. Even if Gao Hanchun still insisted that this matter was not done by the Jintian faction, no one present would believe him. No one would choose to admit to such a big crime unless they were extremely stupid. However, facts spoke louder than words, and everyone already had an answer in their hearts. Faction leader Gao, if you continue to deny it, that's your business. However, on behalf of the various forces on the Emerald Island, I'll give you a deadline. If you don't leave the Emerald Island with your Jintian faction in one day, then don't blame us for using force. Yi Lifei's eyes gradually turned cold as he looked at Gao Hanchun. His hatred for Gao Hanchun was not as simple as this matter. Gao Hanchun had teamed up with his trusted subordinates to take his life, and even wanted to swallow the entire Great Cyan faction. He would make Gao Hanchun pay for this. Are you forcing me? Gao Hanchun's face was as gloomy as water, and his deep voice was extremely hoarse. We've already made it very clear. How faction leader Gao decides is your own business. Yi Lifei waved his hand and said, Men, send the guest out. The words, send the guest out, directly slapped Gao Hanchun in the face. Gao Hanchun looked at everyone in front of him, but saw that they were all ignoring him. It was as if they had no intention of paying attention to him. He could not help but nod angrily. Fine. Believe. Gao Hanchun flicked his sleeves and left. The raging flames in his chest made him want to destroy the entire Green Great Gang. After watching Gao Hanchun leave, the faces of Yi Lifei and the others did not look good. This Gao Hanchun is really arrogant. Now that there is irrefutable evidence, he still dares to threaten us. He is really shameless. If he wasn't shameless, how could he do such a crazy thing? Liang Yonghui sneered. If the people from the heaven-shaking faction still don't leave tomorrow, we will attack together. The Emerald Island will never allow such an evil force to exist. Gao Hanchun had better leave the Emerald Island obediently. Otherwise, we will have to fight, Yi Lifei said solemnly. Gang leader Yi, we have so many people. Do you think we're afraid of the heaven-shaking faction? If they don't leave tomorrow, we will make the heaven-shaking faction disappear from this world. Chapter 30:16. Gao Hanchun and the other two were on their way back from the Great Cyan Gang. Almost all the voices they heard along the way were disdainful and abusive towards their heaven-shaking gang. This made their expressions turn uglier and uglier. Ever since their heaven-shaking gang's sphere of influence had grown larger and larger, no one dared to scold them on a daily basis. However, they were now being scolded by so many people. How could they not be angry? Yi Lifei, that old fox. He wants to use this opportunity to completely trample on our heaven-shaking gang. Gao Hanchuan's gaze was gloomy and cold. He had never suffered such a big loss since establishing the heaven-shaking gang. Big brother, I think something is wrong. Gui Jun frowned. The usual joking expression on his face had disappeared and was replaced by a thick seriousness. We have been in contact with Yi Lifei for a long time. According to his previous performance, his plan shouldn't be so strict. Hearing Gui Jun's words, Gao Hanchuan's expression changed a little. He said, "What do you mean?" He might have a military advisor behind him. Gui Jun said in a deep voice. Big brother, I also feel that we have fallen into a trap when we came to Emerald Island this time. The disappearance of those two cultivators is already very strange. After that, we simply fell into this trap step by step. Now, we don't even have a chance to refute. Lu Jiangang said gloomily. Ever since they came to Emerald Island, he felt that many things had developed beyond their expectations. Logically speaking, it should be very easy to find two newcomers on this small Emerald Island. However, they had been here for so many days and they didn't even find a shadow of the other party. Gao Hanchun nodded. I also feel that Yi Lifei's performance this time is different from before. Not to mention the meticulous plan, the most important thing is that Yi Lifei can't get the pill with his ability. I'm afraid that he has recently found an expert. Big brother, do you think it could be those two cultivators who call themselves 100 Flowers Gate? Gao Hanchun looked at Gui Jun noncommittally. Gui Jun continued, those two fellows are still in the Great Cyan Gang. With the temperament of the 100 Flowers Gate cultivators, they should have left long ago. Moreover, according to the news from the Great Cyan Gang, Yi Lifei's condition didn't improve because of those two. However, Yi Lifei still treated them as guests. There must be a reason for that. Not only that, the two disciples of the 100 Flowers Gate came at a very opportune time, coinciding with this matter. Perhaps, it really is those two people. A fierce look flashed across Gao Hanchuan's eyes. When he saw those two fellows, he had a very feeling that something was wrong. But he didn't think too much about it. Now. After Gui Jun's reminder. So what if they did it? What should we do now? Lu Jiangang could not help but ask. To them, it didn't matter who did it. What mattered the most was what they should do next. Chapter 30:17. Once we leave the Emerald Island, this title will be confirmed. Lu Jiangong's face was filled with unwillingness. The Shocking Heavens faction was at its peak right now, but they had to leave because of such a groundless title. Just in terms of momentum, they were already a level weaker than the Shocking Heavens faction. Now, there's no other way but to leave temporarily. Once the major forces of the Emerald Island join forces to attack us, the consequences will be the most serious. Gui Jun patted Lu Jiangong's shoulder. Now they could only admit defeat and plan further in the future. The situation is not that bad. As long as Yi Lifei dies, we can make a comeback. For now, let's just endure it. Gao Hanchun said. After Bailey Hongzhuang heard the news from Yi Lifei, a faint smile appeared on her face. It seemed that the development of the situation was exactly as they had expected. I'm afraid the Jintian Association will completely withdraw from the Emerald Island now. Just thinking about Gao Hanchuan's expression today makes me happy. Shangguan Yingying's face was full of smiles, and her eyes were filled with joy. Because of the Jintian Association, they had been sullen for so long, and now they could finally hold their heads high. Just thinking about it made her happy. Gao Hanchun has suffered a lot of setbacks recently. First, 2 of his younger brothers died, and now he's being expelled by the people of the Emerald Island. It's really a double loss. Bewitching said in a deep voice, and his beautiful lips curled into a charming arc. It's a pity that Gao Hanchun will probably leave the Emerald Island now. Otherwise, once the major forces join forces, the Jintian Association will definitely suffer a heavy blow. That would be the most satisfying situation. Xiren sighed faintly, and his expression was still filled with dissatisfaction. When had he, the dignified young sect master of the Cloud Sword sect, ever fallen into such a situation? Now, only the reputation of the Jintian Association was damaged, and that was a light punishment. Hearing Xiren's words, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, "We'll have to see Sect Master Ye's performance on this point." As soon as these words came out, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying's faces both showed a strange color. They looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with interest and said, "Do you mean that this matter may still change? If it were you, would you let the person who almost took your life go so easily?" Xiren's expression changed slightly as he understood. "So, we have a good show to watch today?" Bewitching smiled faintly. "This is the grudge between gang leader Yi and Gao Hanchun. We just need to wait here and watch the show." With their current strength, they obviously had no hope of fighting the heaven-shaking gang head-on. However, if they were to hand this problem over to the Green Great Gang, then it might not necessarily be the case. Getting someone else to do the dirty work was undoubtedly like this. They only needed to wait for the good news. For a moment, the atmosphere in the room became much more relaxed. The 4 people and 3 beasts were looking forward to Yi Lifei's methods. They believed that Yi Lifei would not disappoint them. The next day, another shocking news came from the Emerald Island. Just last night, the Green Great Gang was ambushed by an assassin. Fortunately, the Green Great Gang's cultivators reacted quickly and subdued the assassin. However, in the end, they found out that the assassin was actually a cultivator from the Heaven-Shaking Gang. Because the secret of their use of pills was discovered by the Green Great Gang, they were extremely dissatisfied and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to silence them. Chapter 30:18. After the news of the Shocking Heavens faction using elixirs spread yesterday, everyone despised the Shocking Heavens faction to the extreme. Logically speaking, the Shocking Heavens faction should have quickly withdrawn from the Emerald Island. Who would have thought that they would dare to retaliate against the Great Saiyan Gang? This was too despicable. Compared to the Shocking Heavens faction who used such despicable methods to control their members, the Great Saiyan Gang who chased the Shocking Heavens faction out of the Emerald Island in order to protect everyone's interests had already become a hero in everyone's hearts. At least the Great Saiyan Gang ensured that the Emerald Island would still be a pure land. Now that the Great Saiyan Gang's leader was attacked like this, everyone naturally could not stand by and watch. For a moment, everyone's crusade against the Shocking Heavens faction became even more intense. After the Yunyang Gang and the other forces found out about this, they were unable to restrain their anger. The Shocking Heavens faction was arrogant before, but now that they had found out the truth, they actually used such methods. This was not only a provocation to the Great Saiyan Gang, but a provocation to all of them. Suddenly, everyone could no longer sit still. They all went to the Great Saiyan Gang and requested to join forces to teach the Shocking Heavens faction a lesson. Yi Lifei was also extremely angry about what happened last night. He thought that they had already done enough by letting the Shocking Heavens faction leave the Emerald Island. He never thought that the Shocking Heavens faction would go so far. He could no longer endure it. Gao Hanchun and the others were originally busy with the matters of leaving the Emerald Island. After hearing the news, they were also burning with anger. This damned old fox, he didn't plan on letting us leave in silence. Lu Jiangang said angrily. What assassin? They had no intention of assassinating Yi Lifei, okay? Gui Jun's expression was extremely ugly, Now that everyone believes in Yi Lifei, the truth is no longer important. Yi Lifei wants to use this opportunity to deal a heavy blow to us. Big brother, what should we do? Let all our brothers leave quickly. Gao Hanchun immediately made a decision. However, Yi Lifei had already planned all of this. How could he give Gao Hanchun and the others enough time? When the Shocking Heavens faction retreated, Yi Lifei's team had already arrived. This was an astonishing battle. Both sides were cultivators above the 5th level of the Purple Realm. The shockwaves of the battle caused the entire Emerald Island to tremble. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 stood on the high platform and looked at the battle in the distance with a faint smile on their faces. Leader Yi really did not disappoint us. Shengguan Yingying could not help but clap her hands as she was watching this scene. When Xiren grinned, revealing his white and neat teeth. Gao Hanchun has really suffered a double loss this time. Looking at the situation, this loss will definitely not be small. Yi Lifei's great science sect. Was science sect's leader, Heaven's faction was faction. So he Heavens during this time, leader's science sect faction had. You Heaven's science sect, so be it Heaven's Science. Chapter 30:19. Without the threat of the Jintian faction, we don't need to cower in fear anymore. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around, no longer looking at the battle behind her. The outcome of this battle had been decided, the only uncertainty was how many losses the Jintian faction had suffered. However, with Yi Lifei's temperament, he would definitely deal a huge blow to the Jintian faction. That was enough. When Yi Lifei returned with his subordinates, many of them were injured, but their faces were filled with joy. Clearly, today's battle had made them feel extremely happy. I've been unhappy with the Jintian faction for a long time. Today, when I saw how flustered they were, I felt so good. Those outsiders took an inch and wanted a mile. Did they really think that we were afraid of them? Aren't they still beaten up by us like stray dogs? Brothers, you're all tired today. Have a good rest. I'll reward you all tomorrow. Yi Lifei stood in front of everyone and raised his hands. His voice was unusually heroic. As soon as these words came out, the cultivators present all burst into a burst of exclamations. Thick joy surged onto their faces. Long live the faction leader! Long live the faction leader! Long live the faction leader! The voices of the great Cyan faction's members were loud and clear, filled with joy, spreading out with the great Cyan faction as the center. From this day onwards, the Jintian faction's forces had completely disappeared from the Emerald Island. It would be impossible for them to set foot on the Emerald Island in the future. Yi Lifei's mood was extremely good. After changing into a clean set of clothes, he went to find Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3. To him, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 were his great benefactors. Faction leader Yi, congratulations. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 said with a smile. Yi Lifei's face was full of smiles. The curve of his lips almost reached his ears. You're too kind. It's all thanks to you. If it weren't for you, the Jintian faction would be the one celebrating right now. He knew very well that if it weren't for the appearance of the 4 people in front of him, he would be terminally ill now. How could he have the might of today's massacre? Gang leader Yi, you're too polite. We're just giving advice. The real executor is the Green Great Gang. Today, the Heaven Shaking Association has suffered heavy losses. According to my estimations, the Heaven Shaking Association's forces have shrunk by at least half. However, Gao Hanchun and the others were very fast, and had already escaped at the first moment. Yi Lifei's face revealed a bit of regret. If he could personally take Gao Hanchun's life today, that would be the most satisfying thing. For this result, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were not surprised. Gao Hanchun was the leader of the Jintian faction. No matter how big the loss was, he would definitely be fine. There will always be a chance in the future, Bewitching said calmly. Gang leader Yi, to tell you the truth, we have something to ask you today. Or rather, we need your help, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Second young Master D, feel free to speak your mind. There's no need to be so courteous between us. As long as it's something I can help with, it's definitely not a problem. Yi Lifei patted his chest and guaranteed. The second young Master D in front of him was his benefactor. Just this life-saving grace alone was not something that could be easily repaid. Faction Leader Yi, do you know anything about the Golden Flame Auction House? Chapter 3020. However, the headquarters of the Golden Flame Auction House is on Penglai Island. Are you going to participate in the auction? Yi Lifei looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. It's easy to participate in the branch auction, but the highest level auction of the Golden Flame Auction House requires an invitation to participate. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Gang Leader Yi, I want to ask if you've seen the Violet Dragon Emperor Ginseng and the Tears of Frigid Flame when you participated in the auction? Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's question, Yi Lifei thought for a moment and shook his head. I've never seen these two herbs appear in an auction. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at each other, their brows slightly wrinkled. With Yi Lifei's identity in Penglai Island, the number of auctions he had participated in should not be small, but Yi Lifei had never seen these two herbs, which was a bit strange. You need these two herbs? Yi Lifei immediately understood. I'll send someone to the Golden Flame Auction House to inquire. If they have these two herbs, I'll buy them. Thank you, Gang Leader Yi. Compared to second young Master D's life-saving grace, what is this small favor of mine? Yi Lifei laughed. At this time, Bewitching also spoke. Gang Leader Yi, as long as we get the relevant information or obtain these two herbs, we'll leave Emerald Island. Yi Lifei was startled. You've just arrived at Penglai Island, why don't you stay in our Great Saiyan gang for a while? It won't be too late to leave after you've made your next move. Bewitching waved his hand. We plan to go to Demon Refining Island to gain experience. If we weren't delayed by the Heaven-Shaking gang, we would have already left for Demon Refining Island. I see. Yi Lifei suddenly understood. Demon Refining Island is indeed a good place to improve your cultivation, but it's also very dangerous. You must be careful if you go there. Xiren smiled. We came to Penglai Island this time because of the Demon Refining Abyss reputation. We've long wanted to see how powerful the Demon Refining Abyss is. We've already mentally prepared ourselves. Thank you, Gang Leader Yi, for reminding us. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had made their decision a long time ago, Yi Lifei nodded and said no more. I'll send someone to the auction house to inquire about these two herbs. I'll inform you as soon as I have any news. Thank you. After sending Yi Lifei away, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others sat together. Master, why are we in such a hurry to leave? Xiao Hei sat on Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder, her round and large black eyes kept turning. They had finally gotten rid of the threat on Emerald Island, so there was no need to be in such a hurry to leave. Bewitching glanced at Xiao Hei. Previously, we were on the same side as Yi Lifei to deal with the Heaven-Shaking gang. Naturally, there was no problem. But now that the Heaven-Shaking gang's threat has been eliminated, if we continue to stay here, Yi Lifei might be afraid. Leaving early can maintain this friendship. Who knows, it might be useful in the future. Chapter 3021. When Xiren had a look of understanding on his face. Based on their previous experience, they were very familiar with how to deal with such a situation. In the face of similar interests, everyone would usually work together. However, once it was time to split the benefits, they would turn against each other. They did not have any thoughts or demands for Emerald Island. Why should they let Yi Lifei develop a grudge against them because of this? We've only been on Penglai Island for a short period of time. With our current cultivation, we won't be able to gain a foothold here. Why don't we preserve this friendship so that we can use it to solve some problems in the future? Bailey Hongzhuang patted Xiao Hei's head. This little girl was better at fighting, but she did not know much about people's hearts. After all, the world of monsters was not as complicated as that of humans. Xiao Hei spread her hands and said, "The world of humans is really troublesome. I don't understand. I only hope that Sect Leader Yi can help us find those two medicinal herbs. Then, we won't have to worry anymore." Shengguan Yingying put her hands together and her eyes were filled with a praying look. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other and had the same expression on their faces. If everything could go so smoothly, it would be great. Yi Lifei was very fast. He immediately sent someone to the Golden Flame auction house to inquire. However, the result was no. Second young Master D, I've sent someone to the Golden Flame auction house to inquire. They don't have these two medicinal herbs. Moreover, when they heard that I was looking for these two medicinal herbs, their expression seemed a little strange. They even asked me what I could use them for. However, I didn't say anything. Yi Lifei immediately told Bailey Hongzhuang and the others about the results. Hearing this news, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could not help but frown. Sure enough, the situation was not as smooth as they had expected. I still have a few acquaintances in the Golden Flame auction house, so I got some insider information from them. The Golden Flame auction house has indeed received these two medicinal herbs before, but they have never auctioned them. They were directly taken away by the higher-ups. I'm afraid it won't be easy for you to obtain these two medicinal herbs. A helpless expression appeared on Yi Lifei's face. If possible, he really wanted to help find these two medicinal herbs. Unfortunately, from the information revealed by the other party, the person above was probably not simple. As soon as he said that, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's hearts skipped a beat. If that's the case, the Golden Flame auction house is not collecting these two herbs for auction, but for someone else. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. According to Bailey Hongzhuang's judgment, although there were many ways to use these two herbs, the possibility of using them together was very small. Could it be that the other party also had the cursed body? However, Bailey Hongzhuang found it unbelievable when she thought about it. The occurrence of the cursed physique was a rare occurrence, and the other party had collected more than one set of herbs. What was the purpose of collecting so many sets? This was a little strange. I'm afraid that the other party's identity is not simple. Even when I went to ask, they did not say who the other party was. I'm guessing that the other party's identity is much higher than mine. Yi Lifei glanced at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. He did not continue speaking, but he believed that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others understood what he meant. Chapter 3022. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three also had their own thoughts. This situation was undoubtedly the most complicated. If the other party was already in existence like the three major forces, it would be even more difficult for them to obtain those two medicinal herbs. This was no longer a problem that could be solved with money. First of all, they needed to reach the qualifications to talk to those forces. Otherwise, all their efforts would be in vain. However, the three major forces had existed on Penglai Island for so many years, and they were just a few newcomers to Penglai Island. How easy would it be to negotiate with them? For a moment, everyone's mood was a little low. They had always been optimistic, but they were not blindly optimistic. This news had already told them how difficult the road ahead would be. Leader Yi, thank you very much. Di Beichen was the first to recover from his emotions, and a smile appeared on his face again. Yi Lifei also felt that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' mood was not normal. At this moment, after hearing Di Beichen's words, he also waved his hand, and a look of guilt appeared on his face. Young Master Di, I'm really sorry that I couldn't help you with this matter. Di Beichen smiled faintly. Leader Yi has already helped us a lot by helping us inquire about this kind of information. At least, he has pointed out the direction for our next path. After Yi Lifei left, the room fell into silence. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were silent, each with their own thoughts. This news was simply a bolt from the blue for them. They originally thought that as long as the auction house had it, they would only need to pay a certain price. But now that the auction house had collected it for someone else, how difficult would it be for them to get it? If they wanted to talk to those major forces, they would at least have to prove that they were valuable enough or display enough strength. But now, they had nothing at all. Di Beichen saw that everyone's mood was so low, and his incomparably handsome face once again burst into a sunny smile. You don't have to be so sad. Although the chances have become a lot smaller now, it is not completely impossible. We have not witnessed miracles along the way. Maybe just like the Zhentian faction, there will be a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. When Xiren took a deep look at Di Beichen, he quickly hid the worry in his eyes and put on his usual heartless smile. You're right. We brothers have seen everything since we were young. This is just a test given to us by the heavens. Shangguan Yingying's hands were intertwined, and the complex look on her face remained unchanged. She wasn't as good at hiding her emotions as Xiren. She was really worried about Bewitching. Could they really reach such a realm in a year or two? If she failed, the consequences would be unimaginable. Among everyone, Bailey Hongzhuang's mood was undoubtedly the heaviest. She never thought that Bewitching would leave her one day, but all the things that happened now made her feel helpless. All these things were beyond their control, and no one knew the final result. The only thing she knew was that she absolutely couldn't accept Bewitching's departure. Although her heart was extremely sad, Bailey Hongzhuang still forced a smile. "We'll definitely find a way." Chapter 30-23. Bewitching looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. His eyes were filled with heartache. He knew too well how strong and fragile Bailey Hongzhuang was. No matter how strong she appeared in front of him, he could still see through her weakness and fear. However, he could not mention this, nor was he willing to expose Bailey Hongzhuang's pretense. He did not want to see Bailey Hongzhuang cry. It would make him deeply feel that he was useless. In the past, he secretly swore that he would not let anyone hurt Bailey Hongzhuang. However, the person who truly made Bailey Hongzhuang afraid and sad was himself. Bewitching gradually clenched his hands under his sleeves. Because he used too much force, his knuckles had turned white. However, Bewitching did not feel it at all. His life was not up to the heavens. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, he would not give up. He definitely could not let Bailey Hongzhuang suffer such a cruel consequence. After that, Yi Lifei helped Bailey Hongzhuang and the others ask about the 2 kinds of medicinal herbs. However, none of his friends possessed these 2 kinds of medicinal herbs. These 2 kinds of medicinal herbs were not a lot of medicinal herbs. In addition, Penglai Island had a lot of cultivators. The proportion of alchemists was much lower than the outside world. Therefore, the amount of medicinal herbs needed was not to mention. In response, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others expressed their gratitude to Yi Lifei and prepared to leave Emerald Island. They had already obtained all the information they needed. Continuing to stay here would only be a waste of time. The thing they could not afford to waste the most now was time. When Yi Lifei saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were preparing to leave, he once again urged them to stay. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others politely declined. "Young Master D, you must be careful when you go to Demon Refining Island. I hope we will have a chance to meet again in the future," Yi Lifei said slowly. Demon Refining Island was extremely dangerous. The number of cultivators who died every day was not small. Yi Lifei had been to Demon Refining Island before. Therefore, he was very familiar with the situation there. If cultivators were not careful, they would lose their lives there. He had advised Bailey Hongzhuang and the others that with their abilities, they would be able to live well on other islands of Penglai Island. However, if they went to a place like Demon Refining Island, their survival would be uncertain. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had already made up their minds. They had to go to Demon Refining Island to improve themselves. Demon Refining Island was the fastest place to improve their cultivation. They knew that, and they knew of it now. They knew that there was no use to them now. They could only improve themselves. Gang leader Yi will meet again. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others sat on the small boat again and left the first island they landed on. I heard that Demon Refining Island's Yuanqi is much denser than other islands. Therefore, almost all the cultivation maniacs in Penglai Island are gathered there. Xiren looked at everyone with interest. He felt that Demon Refining Island was much more powerful than Bloodground Abyss. Cultivation maniacs? Bailey Hongzhuang's red lips curled up slightly. She then smiled and nodded. This description is very appropriate. Therefore, the cultivators there are much more powerful than the cultivators on other islands. I'm afraid this is why Yi Lifei repeatedly reminded us to be careful. Chapter 30-24. We have to hurry up and reach the 5th level of the Purple Realm. Our current cultivation is too dangerous. I'm really curious how my old man managed to survive when he came here alone with that kind of cultivation. Xiren held his chin with his right hand, and his eyes were full of thoughts. Although he was speechless about his old man's usual behavior, he had to admit that his old man was really capable. Sect Master Wen is a genius cultivator. My master always admires him when he talks about him. His past must be a legend, but he rarely talks about it. Bewitching's face showed an interested expression. There were very few people that his master admired, and Sect Master Wen was one of them. Shangguan Yingying also nodded. I also think that my father is amazing. You should learn from him. With our current situation, it will take several months or even a year to reach the 5th level of the Purple Realm. I hope that the demonic abyss lives up to its name and can speed up our cultivation progress. Otherwise, a complicated light flickered in his bright, black phoenix eyes. If it were any other cultivator, they would definitely think that this kind of cultivation speed was already very fast. After reaching the Purple Realm, it was extremely difficult to advance even one level in a year. Being able to advance 2 levels in a year was a speed that would make people envious. However, this speed was far from enough for Bailey Hongzhuang. They had to shorten the time. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Shangguan Yingying nodded. I believe that the demonic abyss won't let us down. Since there are so many cultivation maniacs there must be a reason. Maybe our cultivation speed will greatly increase. That would be wonderful. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 took a boat to the Demonic Abyss Island. There were 2 islands between the Demonic Abyss Island and the Emerald Island. Although it wasn't very far, it still took a few days to reach. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 weren't as bored as before. Instead, they encountered many boats. There were big and small boats, plain, exquisite, luxurious, and so on. It was clear that the most important means of transportation on the Penglai Island was boats. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 had been keeping a low profile and had not had any conflicts with any other teams. Therefore, they had been safe and sound along the way. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 finally arrived at Devil Refinement Island. From afar, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 were attracted by the bright red world. The sky was bright red, the island was bright red, and even the seawater seemed to be bright red. Even though there was still a certain distance between them, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could still sense the thick murderous aura and the stench of blood. Such a murderous aura could only be formed by an extremely brutal killing. However, the demonic refining abyss was a place filled with slaughter. Only such an existence could cause the entire sky to be covered in blood. Looking at this blood-red world, I feel that it's very similar to the Bloodland Abyss. If we weren't on an island, the resemblance would be even greater. Xiren smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes also revealed a trace of a smile. Smelling this stench of blood, it really is somewhat familiar. Chapter 3025. Back then, that brat Bewitching obtained the inheritance of the blood refining tower, but I didn't. My old man talked about it for a long time, and almost gave me the title of trash. I wonder if I can wash away my shame in the demon refining abyss this time? When Xiren's eyes suddenly lit up, if I can obtain the inheritance of the demonic refining abyss, my family's old man won't be able to nag at me like before. At the very least, I'll have more confidence in front of him. Bewitching glanced at Xiren indifferently. Look at you, this matter has already happened so many years ago, and you still remember it. I don't want to remember this matter, but my old man talks about it in front of me every day. I have no choice. Xiren held his forehead. Normally, it was fine, but as long as he was serious with the old man would bring up this matter, leaving him with no way to refute. It really made him helpless to the extreme. Based on his understanding of his old man, if he could obtain the inheritance of the demon refining abyss this time, he would be able to completely shut the old man's mouth. Xiren, then you have to work harder this time. Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Xiren nodded. I've always been very confident in myself. Bewitching, you have to be careful this time, don't lose to me. I'm more worried about history repeating itself. After the ship docked, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 set foot on the demon refining island. At a glance, the entire island was blood red, and even the sand was blood red. The fiery red world was strangely enchanting. Stepping on the ground, it felt very soft, as if the blood had fused with the sand for who knows how many years. The air was filled with a faint smell of blood. If it was someone who came here for the first time, they would definitely be very uncomfortable, just like Shangguan Yingying, who had been frowning ever since she set foot on the demon refining island. Although she was not unfamiliar with the smell of blood, she definitely did not like it. The entire island was shrouded in this smell, and it was very difficult for people to get used to it. Compared to Shangguan Yingying, Bailey Hongzhuang, Di Beichen, and Xiren were extremely indifferent. They had long been used to this environment. The demon refining island was not small, but the entire island could be said to be barren, without any plants. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could see the entire island at a glance. It was really a strange place. The entire island was barren, and only one building attracted the attention of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. In fact, this was the only building on the entire demonic refining island, so it was particularly shocking. Looking from afar, Bailey Hongzhuang found that the height of this pagoda was far beyond her expectations. It was dozens of stories high and could be said to be the tallest building she had ever seen. Wow, this demon refining tower looks quite shocking. Shangguan Yingying stared at the pagoda in shock. She had heard of the rumors of the blood-ground abyss, but the blood-ground tower only had 9 floors. This pagoda was dozens of floors high. Just the feeling of vicissitudes of life was enough to shock her. If we want to obtain the inheritance of the demon refining abyss, don't tell me we have to go through so many levels? Xiren was secretly speechless. If that was really the case, then the demon refining abyss was truly terrifying. Chapter 3026. If we really have to go through so many levels, then the cultivators who pass are really geniuses among geniuses. Xiao He looked at the shocking building in front of her and was secretly speechless. Could it be that no one has ever obtained the inheritance of the demonic abyss? As soon as she said this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but look at Di Beichen and Xiren. She really didn't know anything about history. Di Beichen shook his head. That's not the case. There are still cultivators who have obtained the inheritance, but the number is even fewer than in the blood-ground abyss. Even if there should only be 1 or 2 people, right? Xiao Bai said helplessly. More or less. Di Beichen replied. Xiao Bai scratched her head, her face full of helplessness. It seems that the test of the demonic abyss is really a little abnormal. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly, not showing the slightest disappointment because of this news. We have already seen the effect of the blood aura field. It is very helpful to cultivators. The inheritance of the murderous aura field must be more powerful than the blood aura field, so it is naturally very difficult to obtain. If it was so easy to obtain, it wouldn't be so attractive. Ever since she came into contact with the blood aura field, Bailey Hongzhuang admired the power of the blood aura field. If she could obtain the murderous aura field, then once the 2 auras were combined, the effect would be even more shocking. For ordinary people, it was undoubtedly extremely difficult to fight above their level, but once they had the blood aura field or the murderous aura field, everything became much simpler. Shangguan Yingying nodded. Hongzhuang is right. It is precisely because the possibility of success is very small that once we succeed, the harvest will be extremely shocking. Since someone has already obtained the murderous aura field, we might be able to succeed. Looking at Shangguan Yingying's confident appearance, the smile in Xiren's eyes couldn't help but deepen a little. He reached out and pulled the former into his arms. Yingying, you have to be mentally prepared before you go in. The scene inside is probably more cruel and bloody than you can imagine. Shangguan Yingying raised her eyebrows. Don't underestimate me. I wanted to go with you when you went to the blood-ground abyss, but I didn't have the chance. Beichen brought Hongzhuang to the blood-field abyss, but you refused to bring me. This time, I'll show you how powerful I am. Hee hee. Xiren chuckled and tightened his grip on Shangguan Yingying's hand. Then I'll wait and see. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other and smiled. They turned and walked towards the demon refining pagoda in the center of the demon refining island. This solitary pagoda really gave everyone a lot of shock. It was only when Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 arrived in front of the pagoda that they could feel it more clearly. The pagoda was several hundred meters tall. Every single floor was much taller than an ordinary building. Moreover, there were many chains that were thicker than a human hand coiled around the pagoda. It seemed like a forbidden place, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. Looking at the pagoda before them, everyone felt as if they would be completely subdued as soon as they walked in. It was a deal with the devil, and the slightest carelessness would cause them to be completely wiped out. Chapter 30:27. Let's go in, Bewitching said. In the next second, Bewitching and the other three walked into the demon training tower together. As soon as they entered the demon training tower, the four of them felt an overwhelming clamor that went straight into their ears. It was a stark contrast to the silence outside. In their line of sight was a reception hall. The entire hall was abnormally spacious and bright. It was divided into various small sections, and every section was filled with people. It looked extremely busy. The appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three naturally attracted the attention of many people. However, everyone's gazes turned away after sizing them up for an instant. It was as if they were already used to it. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were secretly shocked when they saw this scene. This situation was completely different from the blood training tower. Most importantly, the bright lights here and everything in an orderly manner did not seem to be chaotic at all. It was completely different from what they had imagined. Instead, it made them feel as if they did not know where to start. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking about what to do, a graceful figure appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. The four of you should be new to the demon training tower, right? Bewitching nodded slightly and said in a deep voice, "That's right. The four of you, please follow me to fill in your information. I will tell you the basic information and lifestyle of the demon training tower." The woman's face always had an indifferent and delicate smile, making it impossible for people to have any ill feelings towards her. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three followed behind the woman and walked to one of the many counters in the hall. There was a sign hanging there, "Newcomer Registration Area." Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were busy sizing up their surroundings and did not notice the existence of such a counter. The situation here seems to be a little different from what we imagined. I'm really curious as to how we can cultivate here. Xiren lowered his voice and said slowly. Bewitching's eyes flashed with a deep light. You'll know later. Everything here is indeed different from the blood-ground abyss. Bailey Hongzhuang can't help but think of the first time she and Bewitching received the spirit stones. It seems that Penglai Island likes this layout very much. Although the place where they received the spirit stones is not as magnificent as here, the overall layout is still the same. It was precisely this kind of orderly and abnormal feeling that made them realize that all of this was not simple, causing them to not dare to act rashly. Just by looking at the scene before her, Bailey Hongzhuang was certain that everyone here had to abide by certain rules. Once the rules were broken, the consequences would be very tragic. The woman walked into the counter, her delicate face always filled with a polite smile. She reached out and handed the pen and paper to Bewitching, saying, "Please fill in your information first." Bewitching looked at the paper in front of him and couldn't help but frown, because there was only one place to fill in, and that was cultivation. In the name column, there was only a number. As if seeing Bewitching's confusion, the woman explained, "In our demon training island, we don't call people by their names, only their serial number. This serial number is your name here." As soon as these words came out, Bewitching and the others understood, and the surprise in their hearts became even stronger. Chapter 30:28. Our demonic training tower is divided into a total of 5 areas. One is the living area, which is where the cultivators usually live. Everyone has their own room, but they need to pay a certain fee. The size of the room is different, and the price is also determined according to the size of the room. No matter what kind of service you need, whether it's ordering food, buying pills, weapons, or other needs, you only need to go to the counter in the center of the central area and say it. As long as you can afford it, the service you need will be sent to your room as soon as possible. When talking about other needs, the woman looked at Bewitching and the others with a hint of frivolity. The meaning of her words couldn't be more obvious. This is the price list of the accommodation. You can take a look. Bewitching took the price list and looked at it. Although he was prepared, he still couldn't help but be surprised. This price was really shocking. Previously, when they were on Emerald Island, the rooms they stayed in were of the highest quality. 1 low-grade spirit stone per day was already a high price. However, in the Demon Refining Tower, even the worst room cost 3 spirit stones per day. As for the price of a large room, it was even more expensive. This was just the cost of the room. Food and some other basic needs were not included. If all of these were added together, the cost of a day's accommodation could be said to be extremely shocking. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others naturally saw this price and their hearts couldn't help but thump. Ever since they came to Penglai Island, they had become completely poor. Fortunately, before they left, Yi Lifei gave them some spirit stones. They didn't refuse because they felt that their needs after coming to the Demon Training Tower might not be small. But now, looking at the price list, the help Yi Lifei gave them was just a drop in the bucket. They definitely wouldn't stay on Demon Training Island for a short time. According to the consumption of so many spirit stones a day, it wouldn't be long before they used up all their savings. If they couldn't find a way to make money on Demon Training Island, then they would be forced to leave in 2 or 3 months. A strong sense of helplessness rose in the hearts of Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3. If it was in the past, they had not experienced this kind of embarrassment for a long time. They did not expect that after coming to Penglai Island, they could not move an inch because of this problem. The woman's face was filled with a faint smile. Looking at the expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, she said, "Have you all decided on which room to stay in?" "Give us 2 of the most common rooms," Bewitching said. Based on their current situation, this was the only thing they could do. The more spiritual stones they saved, the longer they could stay on the island. Hearing Bewitching's answer, the woman nodded, but a look of disdain flashed in the depths of her eyes. "All right. Other than the residential area, the second area is where the arena matches are held. Everyone can head to the second area to participate in the arena. If you win, you will receive a certain reward. If you lose, you might lose your life. Similarly, you can also choose to place a bet. If you win, you will receive a corresponding reward," the woman continued. Chapter 3029. The third area is the living quarters for alchemists and doctors. It's relatively quiet there and no one would dare to disturb them. Alchemists and doctors can refine pills or concoct medicines and sell them in exchange for a certain amount of spirit stones. However, we will take a commission from them. Aside from alchemists and doctors, ordinary cultivators are not allowed to enter the third area. This is the method we use to protect ourselves. The woman did not explain in detail when she spoke about this. Clearly, she did not think that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were either of the 2. Alchemists and doctors did not need to worry about money. How could they be as embarrassed as the 4 in front of them? "May I ask if we can sell pills and the like in the other areas?" Bailey Hongzhuang slowly asked. Based on their current situation, their need for spirit stones was not small. If they ran out of spirit stones in the future, they could only use this method to exchange for them. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the woman could not help but glance at Bailey Hongzhuang. The disdain in her eyes grew even stronger, but she still nodded. "Yes, as long as there's something valuable, the Devil Refining Tower can sell it on your behalf." "Thank you." Bailey Hongzhuang heaved a sigh of relief. At least this way they would have a way to deal with it. They would not have to worry about being forced to leave due to a lack of spirit stones. The fourth area is the cultivation area. Different rooms in the cultivation area have different levels of yuan qi. If you want to quickly raise your cultivation level, cultivating in the cultivation area is a very good method. However, the price of the cultivation area is extremely high. It's much higher than the living quarters. Furthermore, it's not something that can be entered with money alone. You must reach a certain level in the Devil Refining Tower before you can enter. When the woman spoke up to this point, she glanced indifferently at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. She had no intention of introducing them further. These fellows can't even afford to stay in the most ordinary of rooms. If they want to cultivate in the cultivation area, that's a complete fantasy. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others naturally noticed the change in the woman's mood. Hence, even though they were very interested in the cultivation area, they did not ask any further. They thought that it would only make the other party laugh even more. Since that was the case, it was better to let them find out for themselves. In any case, according to the woman's words, they did not have the qualifications to head to the cultivation area for the time being. The fifth area is the trial area. Whether or not you can obtain the inheritance of the demon refining tower depends on this trial area. If you can pass through all the trials, you will be able to obtain the inheritance of the killing aura. However, this is not an easy task. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others nodded. After the woman's introduction, they now had a basic understanding of the magic tower. Compared to the simple division of the blood refining tower, the division of the demon refining tower was clearly much more detailed and had more functions than the blood refining tower. If you don't have any other questions, write down your cultivation here. You may leave after receiving your number plate. Hearing this, Bewitching and the other three wrote down their cultivation levels on the paper one by one. However, this was not their real cultivation levels. Chapter 30:30. Thank you for the reminder. Bewitching cupped his fists and walked up to the second floor with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. With the departure of Bewitching and the others, another woman came to the side of the first woman, her face full of interest. Tianmeng, I saw that the men just now were not bad. Do they have any potential for development? Sweet Dream curled her lips. So what if they're good-looking? They're just a few poor bastards living on the second floor. It's a complete waste of time to deal with them. They can only live on the second floor? The other woman seemed to be very surprised. They don't look like it. Take a look at their cultivation. Sweet Dream handed the registration book in front of her to the woman. They're all at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. They must be newcomers to Penglai Island and came here stupidly out of curiosity. They don't understand the power of this place at all. In my opinion, it won't be long before they lose their lives here. Sweet Dream shrugged. She had seen many such cultivators before, and they were usually cannon fodder. They might not even be able to cause a single ripple on this demonic refining island before they were directly thrown out to wet the ground. Looking at the registration in front of her, the woman also showed a lack of interest. There's really nothing to pay attention to. It's more reliable to find a man with a lot of money. Unfortunately, the men with a lot of money don't look very good. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the others walked to the second floor, Xiaohei couldn't help but say, that woman clearly looked down on us. At first, it was fine, but when she found out that we were going to live in the most ordinary room, her attitude immediately changed. She's really a snob. Shangguan Yingying's face also showed an angry expression. Yes, the contempt in her eyes was too obvious. I've never been looked down on like this before. Xiren patted Shangguan Yingying's shoulder and smiled. Yingying, the people here are all snobs. If you didn't show your ability, it's normal for people to look down on you like this. It's good enough that she didn't directly mock us. In fact, we are indeed 4 poor fellows. Even if we add up all the spirit stones we have, we don't know how long we can stay in this residential area. Bailey Hongzhuang spread out her hands with a self-deprecating smile on her face. Now that she was dressed as a man, she didn't feel much. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but laugh. Hongzhuang, you're really calm. Just get used to it. Bailey Hongzhuang came to an understanding in her heart. Shangguan Yingying had always grown up in the Cloudsword sect since she was young, and the number of times she'd left the sect to gain experience and tempering wasn't many. Thus, she didn't encounter many situations like this. But she was different. She'd walked through the ridicule and disdain of others all along the way, and she'd long since become accustomed to such gazes. This kind of person was also very simple. As long as you displayed a certain amount of strength, she would immediately change her original face and let you feel how fast she changed her face. There should be a lot of rich people in this devil refining tower. There aren't many people living on the second floor. Looks like we're indeed at the bottom. Bewitching sized up the situation around him and judged. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the situation around her. She also noticed that some of the doors were open, which meant that there were no cultivators living inside. Chapter 30:31. Don't worry, I believe that we won't be staying here for long. Bewitching's deep and charming eyes rippled with the light of a smile. He was very confident about this point. As soon as he said this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three looked at each other and smiled. As long as they had the ability, they would be able to quickly improve the situation before them. Xiren, I feel that the situation of this magic tower is different from what you told me before. Everything seems to be quite normal. Shengguan Yingying raised her eyebrows and looked at Xiren. She had always been looking forward to seeing the cruel side of the magic tower with her own eyes because Xiren had introduced a lot of things to her in order to let her be mentally prepared. However, after coming here, she felt that the situation was completely different. The situation here is also beyond my expectations. However, when we go to the arena area, you should be able to see it. Xiren said with a faint smile. Shengguan Yingying declined to comment. Let's stay here for the time being. The density of the elemental energy in the demonic training tower is indeed higher than outside. The density of the elemental energy here is already comparable to when we were cultivating in the sect. I am really curious as to how dense the elemental energy in the cultivation area is. Judging from the pride of that woman when she introduced the cultivation area, the density of the Yuan Qi in the cultivation area must be very high. If we can cultivate there, it will be a great help to our cultivation. Unfortunately, with our current situation, whether it is the spirit stones or the level, we don't have enough. We have to think of a way to reach a high enough level and then earn enough spirit stones. As for the other things, we are not in such a hurry. The ink-black phoenix eyes rippled with a deep light. To Bailey Hongzhuang, the most important thing now was to increase her cultivation. Nothing else was that important. Tomorrow, we will go to the arena area to take a look and understand the situation at the same time. Let's have a good rest here today. Bewitching said. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. That woman gave me a manual just now. It is about life in the magic tower. Let's take a look at it later. While they were talking, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three successfully found their room. The two rooms were right next to each other, which was very convenient. Bewitching, Hongzhuang, have a good rest. We'll make our move tomorrow after we're refreshed, when Xiren said. After drifting on the ship for a few days, everyone was a little tired. They just wanted to have a good rest today. Rest well too. Closing the door, Bailey Hongzhuang also looked at the room in front of her. The room was very simple. There was only a bed inside and nothing else. However, the size of the room was much larger than Bailey Hongzhuang had imagined. It seemed that the standard of living in the demon refining tower was quite good. Even the worst room looked very good. Of course, 3 spirit stones a day was enough for one to live in a luxurious residence in the outside world. Bailey Hongzhuang sat down on the bed and flipped through the manual in her hand. Bewitching, the difference between the demon refining abyss and the blood ground abyss seems to be that they have all the inns in the blood ground abyss in the demon refining tower. That's why the tower is so tall. Chapter 30-32. Although the blood refining tower only had a total of 9 floors, the entire blood ground abyss was extremely large. Including the training grounds, the demon refining tower only had a few dozen floors. The difference in size between the two could be imagined. This is not surprising. The requirements to go to the blood ground abyss are much lower. Just the threshold of cultivators above the 5th level of the Purple Realm is enough to stop many people from coming to Penglai Island. Therefore, the range of the demon refining tower is destined to be smaller than the blood refining tower. However, the people here are much stronger. Bewitching nodded. The higher the level of the pyramid, the fewer the number of cultivators. Therefore, the range of the demon refining tower was naturally smaller. Looking at the introduction in the manual, I feel that the demon refining abyss is even more brutal than the blood ground abyss. With our current cultivation, I'm afraid it's very dangerous here. Bailey Hongzhuang handed the manual to Bewitching. The content of the manual was very simple. The principle was that strength was everything. As for the rest, it was useless here. The strength of a 5th level of the Purple Realm was often the same as cannon fodder here, let alone a 3rd level of the Purple Realm. Bewitching looked at the contents of the manual and his eyes deepened. You're right. With our current cultivation, it's not suitable for us to fight with anyone. Otherwise, it'll be very troublesome. Just the fact that they were able to come here without even reaching the 5th level of the Purple Realm was enough to attract a lot of attention. According to his experience, it was never a good thing to attract attention in a place like this. It was a big trouble. In that case, won't we be in a lot of trouble? The 3 beasties stood to the side, their faces revealing a difficult expression. Bailey Hongzhuang stroked Baisher's soft fur. We've already mentally prepared ourselves for this. With our cultivation, it's difficult to move around here. However, as long as we're careful not to cause trouble, it's not a problem to cultivate here quietly. At least, the density of the elemental energy here is higher than on other islands. Let's go to the arena area tomorrow to take a look. It would be best if we could make use of the arena area to earn a certain amount of spirit stones. This way, we can also solve our urgent problem. Bewitching reached out to hold Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "Wife, you must be tired these days. Rest well. It won't be too late to think about other things in the future." Bewitching's eyes, which were as deep as the sea, flickered with intense heartache. He could see all the hardships that Bailey Hongzhuang was suffering right now, and his heart ached even more. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "All right, let's rest together." She always believed that tomorrow would be better. No matter what kind of desperate situation she was in, she firmly believed that there was always a way out. The next day, after Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 rested for a while, they were also full of energy. All of their fatigue had disappeared without a trace. After understanding the price list of the magic training tower, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 no longer had any thoughts of ordering food. Fortunately, they still had a lot of dry rations in their Qiankuan bags. Before they earned enough spirit stones, they didn't plan on eating here for the time being. On the bottom 10 floors of the magic training tower, other than the reception hall on the 1st floor, the 2nd to 10th floors were all residential areas. The 10th to 15th floors were where the alchemists and doctors lived. The 16th floor was where the arena was. Chapter 30-33. Before obtaining a certain amount of battle results, cultivators could only participate in the arena on the 16th floor. Unless they had accumulated enough battle results, they could only proceed to the 17th floor. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 had already expected this, so they were not surprised. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 arrived at the 16th floor, a burst of deafening shouts broke into their ears. In their line of sight, there was a huge arena in the center, surrounded by seats in the shape of steps. At this moment, 2 cultivators were locked in a fierce battle in the arena, and the surrounding spectator seats were also filled with people. At this moment, they were constantly raising their hands and cheering for the cultivators that they favored. A faint smell of blood spread out from the arena. The 2 cultivators were already injured, but they did not seem to feel the pain on their bodies. Their gazes were abnormally fierce, as if they would not stop until they killed their opponent. After seeing this scene, Shangguan Yingying's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. This situation was indeed the same as what Xiren had described to her. "This competition has already started, we can't place any bets." Xiren shrugged. They came to the arena area today for no other reason than to earn spirit stones. "Let's go to the spectator seats and take a look first. We don't know enough about the combat power of a 5th level Purple Realm cultivator. Watching a few more matches will be beneficial for us," Bewitching said in a deep voice. Xiren nodded slightly. The 4 of them then found an empty seat in the spectator seats and sat down. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 sat down, a waiter came up to them and asked if they needed food and drinks. However, he was rejected by Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3. Right now, they could not even pay for the room, let alone order something here. However, the surrounding cultivators were obviously much wealthier than them. Many of the cultivators were drinking wine while watching the arena excitedly. Shangguan Yingying looked at the bright red liquid in many people's wine glasses and could not help but wonder, what are they drinking? I don't think I've ever seen such a crystal clear red drink before. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2 looked at each other. She and Bewitching then looked away, leaving everything to Xiren to explain. "Bloody Mary." Xiren lowered his voice and whispered in Shangguan Yingying's ear. To put it simply, it's human blood. But it's been processed, so it doesn't look sticky. As Xiren's voice fell, Shangguan Yingying's expression suddenly changed. She covered her mouth with her right hand and wanted to vomit, but she forcefully held it back. Some of the cultivators present also noticed Shangguan Yingying's movements. They glanced at Shangguan Yingying indifferently and labeled her as a newbie. They can actually drink human blood with such relish? Shangguan Yingying asked in disbelief. When Xiren smiled faintly. After we win the bet, you can also order a cup to try. I'm not interested in this kind of thing. Shangguan Yingying hurriedly refused. Xiren raised his eyebrows. He did not intend to force Shangguan Yingying, but the demonic abyss itself was such an existence. He believed that Shangguan Yingying would understand after staying here for a long time. Bang! Tyrannical origin energy collided in the arena. How strong was a 5th-level Purple Realm cultivator? Chapter 3034. How powerful would a 5th-level Purple Realm cultivator be when they unleashed all of their strength? Even the entire Devil Training Tower would be destroyed under such power. However, even though the battle between the two was extremely intense, they were still isolated within the protective barrier. Just this point alone was enough to see how powerful the protective barrier was. This was only the lowest level of the arena. The cultivators in the arenas above would become more and more powerful, and the fluctuations from the battle would become more and more intense. However, the entire Devil Training Tower was not affected at all. This made Bailey Hongzhuang sigh at how amazing the Devil Training Tower was. Bang! Shocking collisions continued to erupt. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that the battle was nearing its end. The two people in the arena had basically used all of their strength. They were only left with one last fight. Kill him! Kill him! The spectators in the stands kept shouting. Their eyes flashed with excitement. Such a bloody scene did not make them feel uncomfortable at all. On the contrary, it made them very excited. Shangguan Yingying was speechless when she saw such a perverted scene. Sure enough, the people here were all crazy. There was no moral bottom line at all. Originally, she did not think much of Xiren's introduction. She only thought that Xiren was exaggerating. However, it seemed that Xiren was not exaggerating at all. On the contrary, it was very simple. Fresh blood seemed to be the main theme here. Everyone was excited because of fresh blood. Human life became the most insignificant thing. Bailey Hongzhuang silently watched the battle in the arena. Her ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with a deep and shrewd light. The people here were different from the cultivators in the Bloody Ground Abyss. The cultivators in the Bloody Ground Abyss could only be considered not bad. However, the cultivators in the Devil Training Abyss were already geniuses among geniuses. Any cultivator who had cultivated to this level would cherish their lives very much. If they were to lose their lives just because of a competition, it would not be worth it. Therefore, she was very curious about the final result of this competition. Bang! One of the men fell heavily to the ground. Panting, he no longer had the strength to stand up. His body was already covered in blood, and there was a bloody hole in his head. Blood kept flowing out from the wound, and the strong smell of blood entered everyone's nostrils. Kill him! Kill him! The crowd was still clamoring, as if Yang's methods were the only thing that could make them feel better. However, in the end, the opponent didn't take the guy's life. Instead, he took the number plate from his body, paired the two numbers together, and threw the number plate back to the guy. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching looked at each other. It seemed that they didn't have enough understanding of the arena. Bewitching pondered and said slowly, that number plate should have the winning points. After this man won, he directly took away the points that belonged to his opponent. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly. If you want to reach a higher level, you must have enough points. Even though they didn't know much, they could make a judgment based on their past experience. Chapter 3035. For a cultivator to reach the 5th level of the Purple Realm, the amount of hard work and effort required was simply unimaginable. The higher the cultivation, the more unwilling one was to die. This result was already much better than what they had imagined. I feel that this person must have paid a heavy price, or else the opponent wouldn't have let him go so easily. Shengguan Ying pondered. No matter what price he paid, it's not as important as his own life. Xiren said with a smile. Shengguan Ying nodded. That's true. From the looks of it, although it's easy to get seriously injured in the Demon Training Tower's arena, it's not so easy to lose one's life. That's not bad. The worry in Xiren's eyes dissipated a little. If they wanted to obtain the qualifications to cultivate in the cultivation area, they had to participate in the arena. If it was easy to lose one's life in the arena, it would be a huge risk for them. Although they came here with the spirit of adventure, they didn't want to die in vain. If that's the case, then we have to be careful not to offend some people. Otherwise, the arena could very well be upgraded to a life and death battle. Bewitching said with a smile. As soon as these words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two's faces became serious. One had to know that in a place like the Demon Training Abyss, where everything depended on one's fists, reasoning wouldn't work at all. Conflicts between cultivators couldn't be more simple. It was possible that you didn't do anything, and the other party simply didn't like you. That was also very possible. With their understanding of themselves, the possibility of not causing trouble in a place like this was close to zero. They could only try their best to be careful. Next battle, 5th level of the Purple Realm Zhao Jun against 5th level of the Purple Realm Zhang Liang. Zhao Jun's current record is 5 battles, 3 wins and 2 losses. Zhang Liang's current record is 7 battles, 3 wins, 3 losses and 1 draw. At this time, the staff of the Demon Training Tower had already stood up to announce the situation of the 2 cultivators in the next battle. While the staff was introducing themselves, Zhao Jun and Zhang Liang slowly walked up to the arena so that the audience could better recognize them. The next 20 minutes will be the time to place your bets. You can check the odds for yourselves. After 20 minutes, the arena will officially begin. After listening to the introduction, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at the odds in the arena area. On a black rectangular board, the odds were clearly written. Zhao Jun's odds were 1 to 3, and Zhang Liang's odds were 1 to 5. According to this situation, we can only bet based on our own judgment. It's hard to tell if we can win in the end. Xiren frowned. In his current situation, the only way to earn spirit stones was to place bets. However, he only knew about the strength and battle records of the 2. He had no idea about the fighting style of the 2. It was very difficult to determine the final winner. Although the results could reflect the situation of some cultivators, it was not absolute. Some cultivators were unlucky and met very strong cultivators. Naturally, they would not be able to improve their battle results. However, some cultivators were lucky and their battle results were much better. However, once the 2 of them met, it was hard to tell whether the final result would be good or bad. Chapter 30-36. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching naturally noticed this and their expressions became complicated. If this method didn't work, then it wouldn't be so easy for them to spend their days in the Demon Training Tower. According to these odds, Zhao Jun should have a higher chance of winning. Unfortunately, our cultivation isn't enough and we can't carefully distinguish the strength of their auras. We can only roughly judge from their current performance. Bewitching said in a deep voice. Xiren nodded. In this way, the accuracy of our judgment will decrease a lot. I'm afraid there will be a winner and a loser. Then there's nothing we can do. We can only try our best to judge more accurately. Shengguan Ying revealed a helpless expression. The current scene really left her at her wit's end. Originally, they had been living as geniuses until now, but ever since they came to Penglai Island, the situation had changed. Not only was their cultivation lower than ordinary people, but their wealth was also completely insufficient. Now, this was the only way to earn some spiritual knowledge, but the success rate couldn't be guaranteed. Who do you bet on? Xiren asked. While they were discussing, more than half of the betting time had passed. If they still didn't bet, then all of this would be over. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 looked at each other and said their thoughts in unison. Zhao Jun. Zhang Liang. Zhao Jun. Zhang Liang. Hearing this result, A helpless expression appeared on the faces of the four people. The result was actually 2 against 2. This was a big problem. In my opinion, this isn't the way. I'm afraid we have to stay in the stands for a while. After we have a better understanding of the combat strength of these people, the accuracy of our bets will increase. When Xiron's brows furrowed slightly and his dark eyes shone with a thoughtful light. Right now, they were already embarrassingly short of money and simply did not have any more money to squander. Once they lost the bet, it would be one disaster after another. If they couldn't find a way to earn money on this demon training island, going to other islands would only be worse. Because here, as long as they stayed in the residential area, ordinary people wouldn't be able to detect their cultivation at all, so there was naturally no need to hide too much. Once they went to other islands, if they wanted to earn spirit stones, they would have to deal with other people, and it would be even more difficult to hide. If that's the case, it'll take a lot of time, Bailey Hongzhuang said in a low voice. Time was of the essence to them. When Xiron shrugged. But there's nothing we can do about the current situation. Why don't we do it in batches? That way, we can save some time on cultivation. That's the only way now. Bewitching nodded. When Xiron smiled faintly. Let's be more optimistic. Watching this kind of competition will also be very beneficial for us to improve our strength. These are not the meaningless competitions that we've seen before. Then it's decided. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. In this competition, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 didn't bet. Instead, they sat quietly in the stands and watched the whole competition. At the same time, they also had a certain understanding of the strength of Zhang Liang and Zhao Jun. At least, the next time the 2 of them went on the stage, it would be much easier for them to judge, and the odds of winning would also increase a lot. Chapter 30-37. Under these circumstances, the accuracy of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' bets increased quite a bit. However, there were still some wins and losses, but overall, they still won more. After all, if they won, they would receive double the rewards, and if they lost, they would not need to double the rewards. As a result, their daily expenses could be solved. However, this required them to spend more time in the arena area, which was what they were most dissatisfied with. However, there was nothing they could do about it. Because Bailey Hongzhuang and the others often went to the arena area and had never participated in the arena battles, they gradually attracted the attention of many people. In the end, the 4 of them were labeled as poor people. There were cultivators who used this method to earn spirit stones in the demon training tower, so everyone was able to quickly determine this. However, there were not many people like this. Because they had become poor people in everyone's eyes, everyone was too lazy to pay attention to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. This saved them a lot of trouble. Because everyone looked down on them, no one was willing to pay attention to them. Naturally, there were no conflicts. For this point, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were also quite helpless. They really didn't know what to say. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching finished placing their bets and slowly walked back to the second floor of the residential area. As they walked, the 2 of them heard the conversation of the 2 people in front of them. The healing medicine in the demon training tower is too expensive and the effects are not good. It's really troublesome. Indeed, the price of medicinal pills is much higher than outside. If you aren't very rich, you won't be able to buy them often. The only thing we can afford is healing medicine. However, the effects of healing medicine are much worse than medicinal pills. If we spend all our time on healing, it's a waste of time. There's no helping it. The price of everything in the demon training tower is higher than outside. Before I came, I prepared a lot of healing pills, but now I've used them all. Thinking about it, it's really troublesome. Listening to the conversation between the 2, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes couldn't help but light up as an idea suddenly sprouted in her mind. Previously, she had also thought of selling medicinal pills. However, refining medicinal pills was really time-consuming. She might as well go to the spectator area to watch the arena matches. On one hand, she would have a better understanding of the demon training tower. On the other hand, she would be able to gain experience from watching other people's battles. It would also be beneficial to her own strength. Now that she heard the conversation between the 2 of them, She remembered that she didn't have to sell healing pills. She only had to sell healing pills. Although healing pills and medicine were both used to treat injuries, healing pills were made by alchemists. It took a lot of time to make, but the effect was good. However, the price was also very high. Healing medicine, on the other hand, was concocted by a doctor. It took a short time and its effects were not as good as healing pills. However, the price was correspondingly lower. However, as a godly doctor, Bailey Hongzhuang had mastered many types of healing medicine, and there were also many that had good effects. She could make healing pills with effects comparable to healing pills. The price was cheaper than medicinal pills, and the production speed was also very fast. This way, they would be able to save even more time to cultivate. Chapter 3038. Once they returned to the room, Bailey Hongzhuang impatiently told Bewitching her idea. Bewitching, I'm preparing to make some healing medicine and put it on sale at the counter. If the sales are good, we can save a lot of time and just focus on cultivating. Moreover, the Demon Training Tower also has quite a few heavenly treasures for sale that can help increase cultivation. However, these require a certain amount of points, and selling things can also give us a certain amount of points. Once we succeed, we can use this method to increase our cultivation as quickly as possible. Bailey Hongzhuang's bright eyes flashed with excitement and anticipation. She felt extremely helpless about their situation after coming to the Demon Training Tower. Now that they had a chance to change the situation, it was undoubtedly the best result. Hearing this, Bewitching did not find Bailey Hongzhuang's suggestion strange at all. In fact, after hearing the conversation between the two cultivators, he had already guessed Bailey Hongzhuang's idea. In terms of ability to survive outside, he, Wen Ziren, and Shangguan Yingying could not compare to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang, who had a myriad of talents, would never be in a difficult situation no matter where she was. Speaking of which, they were really basking in Bailey Hongzhuang's light. Wife, this is a good suggestion. However, wouldn't this waste too much of your time? Bewitching's black eyes were filled with deep concern. If it saved the three of them time and caused Bailey Hongzhuang to waste all of her time, it would not be worth it. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I can make healing medicine very quickly. It won't take as much time as refining pills. I'll start making it now and bring it to the counter to try it out later. However, I won't state my identity as a doctor, so I'm afraid that the sales will not be too good at the beginning." "No need to rush, we're just trying it out," Bewitching said. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and immediately began to get busy. When it came to making medicinal ingredients, she was very familiar with it. Her chaos ring had always been filled with many medicinal ingredients. Because the chances of her using them were very high, she was used to filling it to the brim. Every time she used some, she would fill it up as long as she had the chance. This good habit also saved her a lot of trouble. If she bought medicinal ingredients in the Demon Training Tower, the price would be several times higher than outside. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang focus on making the medicine, Bewitching stared at it for a while before entering his cultivation. He did not want to disturb Hongzhuang's making. The three beasties stayed by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Xiao He and Xiao Bai even directly helped Bailey Hongzhuang. Because Bai Shi's movements were not as convenient as Xiao He and Xiao Bai, it could not hold anything with its two paws, so it could only watch from the side. "I think that if we continue to follow Master, we might be able to become a monster beast doctor in the future." Xiao He joked with a smile while helping to grind the medicinal ingredients. Xiao Bai nodded. "That's a good idea." Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Xiao He and Xiao Bai, who were busy and happy, and could not help but smile. "In that case, I'll have to teach you properly. If this medicine sells well, I'll give you this task after teaching you. How about it?" Chapter 3039. When it came to fighting and killing, Xiao He and Xiao Bai were the best. When it came to concocting medicinal pills, there was no problem for them to help, but if it was completely handed over to them, they still didn't have enough confidence in this kind of meticulous work. It was very likely that after making it, there would be some deviation in the effect. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and flicked Xiao He and Xiao Bai's heads. These two little guys had followed her all the way until now, and their ability to act cute really hadn't changed at all. However, she felt that if she trained them well, these two little guys would have no problem becoming her left and right arms. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't concoct much healing medicine today. She planned to take it to the counter and try to sell it first. If it sold well, she would make more. If it didn't sell well, then she didn't need to waste too much time. Of course, in her heart, she still had enough confidence in the healing medicine she made. When Bailey Hongzhuang came to the counter, she saw a familiar figure, because the woman sitting in front of the counter at the moment was the woman who received them when they first came to the demon training tower. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Sweet Dream's eyes also showed a touch of surprise. When she first saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she only felt that this man was very handsome, which made her have a good impression of him. However, after knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang was just a poor ghost, Sweet Dream had no more thoughts. It was completely difficult for a poor ghost to live on Penglai Island. If she was with such a person, then her life would be ruined. Later, she also paid attention to the situation of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. After discovering that they had been going to the arena to earn spirit stones but had never fought in the arena, Sweet Dream was even more disappointed. These were really a few poor ghosts, and they weren't very strong. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's performance in the arena was simply famous recently. Everyone treated them as a joke, but Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three didn't seem to feel anything. This made Sweet Dream even more despise them. She had seen a lot of cultivators in the demon training tower, and there were all kinds of people, but there were very few people who were completely shameless like Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. After all, to cultivate to this level, anyone would have a certain amount of pride in their heart, but the four of them didn't seem to feel this at all. If Bailey Hongzhuang knew what Sweet Dream was thinking at this moment, she would definitely feel very helpless. In fact, after the four came back, they would cultivate. Although they could vaguely guess what others thought of them, they didn't know that it was to this extent. However, even if they knew it, they probably wouldn't care. If they were really at the 5th level of the Purple Realm, they would have already entered the arena to participate in the competition. However, with their current level of cultivation, once it was exposed, it would be really troublesome. Enduring humiliation was also a kind of ability. Lord D, how can I help you? Although she was extremely disappointed in Bailey Hongzhuang, Sweet Dream still showed a trace of a smile on her face. This was the rule of the Demon Training Tower. Chapter 30-40. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang finished speaking, Sweet Dream's expression froze. She stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock, wondering if she had misheard. What did you say? She felt that Bailey Hongzhuang had only come to the counter to buy some necessities. The four of them had stayed on the 2nd floor for some time now, but apart from the room fees, they had not spent anything else. She was certain that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had been eating dry rations during this period of time. However, it had been so long, so they should have pretty much run out. Apart from Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, she had not seen anyone else who could live so shabbily on Demonic Refinement Island. However, she had just heard Bailey Hongzhuang say that she wanted to sell healing medicine. I have some healing medicine here. Please help me sell it. Bailey Hongzhuang took out 10 white porcelain bottles and placed them on the counter, directly using her actions to explain her intentions. Sweet Dream looked at the white porcelain bottles before her and realized that she had not misheard. However, she could not help but frown. You're not a doctor. No one will believe your healing medicine. You haven't spent much on Demonic Refinement Island recently. Could it be that you need to use this method to survive? Sweet Dream found this to be rather unbelievable. She simply could not imagine just how poor Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were. Now, they actually wanted to exchange their own healing medicine for spiritual stones. If that was the case, they might as well just leave. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Sweet Dream indifferently. I don't think I need to explain my situation to you. She knew very well that Sweet Dream looked down on them, so she had no intention of explaining. This was because even if she did, Sweet Dream would only think that she was putting up a strong front. Besides, they could only be considered acquaintances at most. There was no need to explain. Sensing the coldness in Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Sweet Dream was even more certain that her judgment was correct. Every cultivator had their own pride. Now that she had exposed it, Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely be very unhappy. She immediately stopped asking. Our magic training tower's best-selling healing medicines are all made by alchemists and healers. You're only living on the second floor. I can help you sell the healing medicines, but I'm afraid my price won't be high, Sweet Dream slowly said. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Help me set a suitable price. Let me know when it's sold. If anyone else needs it, you can also let me know. All right. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang agree so readily, Sweet Dream looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with pity. She never thought that she would end up like this after coming to the demon training tower. How pitiful! After explaining these matters, Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and returned to her residence. Master, I think I saw pity in that woman's eyes. Xiao He could not help but ask. That's enough, Xiao Bai was speechless. Does that woman think she's the savior of the world? She actually took pity on us? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. In the eyes of many people, we are indeed worthy of pity. If she wants to pity us, then let her. It has nothing to do with us anyway. Chapter 3041. She felt that she was choosing someone she could rely on among the many cultivators. Little did she know that in the eyes of many more people, she was merely a commodity to be chosen. Women like her had always been pitiful. The most pitiful thing was that she had fallen into such a situation without even realizing it. After returning to their room, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching entered a state of cultivation together. The two of them entered the chaos ring directly. Cultivating in the desert world was the best way to improve. Now that their powers have increased, they have almost explored the entire desert world. Thinking back when they had first arrived, they had only felt that the desert world was incomparably vast. After spending so much time exploring, they had changed from being ignorant to understanding. The desert world wasn't endless. It had an end as well. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching had killed more and more monstrous beasts in the desert world. In the process of such battles, their powers had also continued to increase. After all, they could only fight with all their might against monstrous beasts with coarse skin, thick flesh, and boundless strength. Under such imperceptible influence, their powers had gradually increased. It was not only Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching. The three demonic beasts' powers had also increased. There seems to be a city wall in front. Standing in the middle of the desert world, Bailey Hongzhuang stared at the towering city wall in the distance. A trace of astonishment flashed across her pitch-black phoenix eyes. All this time, they had only seen boundless yellow sand in the desert world. The entire place was empty and there was nothing but sand dunes. However, at this moment, in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching's eyes, a row of city walls had clearly appeared. The appearance of these city walls was extremely sudden. It was as if they had always been here. Bewitching stopped in his tracks and looked in the direction that Bailey Hongzhuang was pointing. A trace of astonishment flashed across his handsome eyes. It really is a city wall. Why would a city wall suddenly appear here? That's strange. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered. So far, they had stayed in the desert world for a long time, but they had only seen monsters and had never seen humans. So what was the situation with the city wall now? Let's go take a look, Bewitching said in a deep voice. Now, the demonic beasts in the desert world were no longer a threat to them. The city wall in front of them was strange. They had to take a look to be sure. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, her pretty face showing a trace of vigilance and seriousness, but her eyes flashed with a trace of expectation. From the moment they entered the desert world, they had been exploring. The appearance of new things meant that there might be new opportunities. She was an adventurer, so she was full of anticipation for such novel things. The three beasts followed behind Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching and were equally curious about the situation. Finally, the two humans and three beasts successfully arrived at the city wall. The city wall was 50 meters high. Standing in front of the city wall, it seemed as if the sky was blocked. The grayish-yellow city wall exuded an ancient and heavy aura. The densely packed patterns on it were like spells, revealing a mysterious power. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the complicated patterns in front of her and vaguely felt that these patterns had some meaning. It was just that they could not understand it. Chapter 3042. Bewitching nodded. His expression was equally complicated as he said, "This city wall seems to be a forbidden door. These symbols seem to be filled with a mysterious power as well." Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching looked at each other. It seems that both of them had the same idea. The symbols and the existence of the city wall must have some sort of meaning. It was just that the two of them had no way of determining what it was. "I wonder what's on the other side of the city wall. It feels so mysterious." Baisher looked at the gate of the city wall. It was as if pushing open the thick and heavy gate would lead to another world. Xiao Hei's eyes darted around as she said, "Master, why don't we open the gate of the city wall and take a look inside?" All this while, they had been exploring the world within the Chaos Ring. They believed that there could be something even more mysterious waiting for them on the other side of the city wall. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully studied the city wall and nodded, "All right." Since they could not determine the meaning of the city wall's existence, they should walk to the other side of the city wall and take a look. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching slowly walked towards the gate of the city wall. Compared to the thick and heavy city gate, their figures appeared extremely tiny. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching gradually exerted more force in their hands. They suddenly realized that the weight of the city gate had far exceeded their expectations. They continued to exert more force in their hands, but the city gate only moved slightly. It was only after the two had exerted all their strength that they slowly pushed the city gate open. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The city gate had clearly not been opened for a very long time. Once it was pushed open, a cloud of dust flew into the air and landed on Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching's bodies. The two of them could not help but cough. Once Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching had opened the city gate, they were immediately shocked by the sight before them. In their line of sight was a vast and boundless ocean. The entire world seemed to be filled with a deep blue color. It was a stark contrast to the boundless yellow sand from before. How can this be? Bailey Hongzhuang stared dazedly at the sight before her. Her mind could not wrap itself around this. They had just been in a desert world. How could they have entered the ocean in the blink of an eye? Bewitching and Bewitching immediately turned around to look at the city wall behind them, only to realize that the city wall had disappeared without a trace. It was as if it had never existed in the first place. Behind him was the same blue ocean. At this moment, the three beasts were completely dumbfounded. The world had changed too quickly, making them wonder if they were dreaming. However, a huge wave hit them directly, and they were directly slapped into the sea. This clearly told them that everything in front of them was real and not an illusion. After spitting out a mouthful of seawater, the shock in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes did not dissipate. There's actually another world behind the city wall. Does this mean that we'll have to train in this ocean next? Bewitching took out a boat and pulled Bailey Hongzhuang onto the boat. He said, "I'm afraid so. We've already adapted to everything in the desert world. The monsters there are no longer much of a threat to us. That's why we came here. It seems that we still need to explore this world properly." Chapter 3043. My dear wife, this chaos ring of yours is truly a priceless treasure. It's constantly improving according to our situation. This way, we'll have even better opportunities to train. Bewitching quickly understood the key, and his deep eyes suddenly bloomed with a bright light. Ever since he found out that Bailey Hongzhuang had the Chaos Ring, he felt more and more that the Chaos Ring was magical. Originally, the desert world allowed them to have 3 times more time to cultivate, which was already a great help. Moreover, they could continuously improve themselves by fighting monsters. Now that they didn't have much improvement in the desert world, they came to a brand new world. If his judgment was correct, the monsters in this oceanic world were probably much stronger than the monsters in the desert world. This was using this kind of pressure to force them to grow. Although the process was very difficult, once they persevered, the effect of improvement was very obvious. Hearing Bewitching's words, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood and was immediately surprised. In that case, We'll have to train in this oceanic world in the future. Thinking back to when she first transmigrated because of the Chaos Ring, she felt very depressed. However, the more she found out about the magic of the Chaos Ring, the more she understood why there was an energy storm when she dripped her blood on it. It was because the power of the Chaos Ring was really too heaven-defying. Divine artifacts were very rare in this world, and the Chaos Ring was definitely a divine artifact among divine artifacts. At this moment, the three beasts were already drenched by the waves. Their furry fur was drooping on their bodies, and they were no longer as mighty and cute as before. At this moment, they were constantly shaking their heads, trying to shake off the water droplets on their bodies. Master, this oceanic world should be very dangerous. Thinking back to when we first arrived in the desert world, it was also very dangerous. When they first came to the desert world, they almost lost their lives. It still remembered that scene clearly. As soon as Xiao Bai's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang's ship was violently attacked and shook. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other, then looked at Xiao Bai at the side. You really jinxed it. Xiao Bai clearly knew that it had said something wrong and couldn't help but shut its mouth. It didn't expect the good things to not come true, but the bad things to come true. It had only said it casually and the attack immediately came. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's eyes flashed with a strong fighting spirit. They had to hide their cultivation in the Devil Training Tower, so they didn't have the chance to fight. In the long run, this wasn't a good thing for them. If they could find an opponent in the oceanic world, it would undoubtedly be extremely good for them. All of their improvements could be reflected through battle. At the same time, battle could also stimulate their potential and promote their improvement. Just like that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen cultivated in the Chaos Ring for one day, and went to the spectator area to watch the competition and place their bets on the arena. Every time they placed a bet, they couldn't guarantee that they would win. However, at the end of the day, they would always win a little more. At the very least, there was no problem in maintaining their daily expenses. Chapter 3044. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three used spirit stones, they discovered the wonders of spirit stones. The spirit stones were filled with extremely rich and pure spirit energy. Although some impurities had to be removed during absorption, it was much faster than absorbing spirit energy from the air. If they used spirit stones for an entire day of cultivation, their cultivation speed would be 3 or even 4 times faster than before. In addition, the density of spirit energy in the Devil Training Tower was much higher than the outside world, so their cultivation speed would also be greatly increased. However, their biggest problem was that they did not have spirit stones to support their cultivation. Therefore, even if they obtained a certain amount of spirit stones through betting in the arena, they still had to be very frugal. This was because the spirit stones in the arena were still not enough to support their cultivation. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen cultivated in the ocean world. Although they were in a state of battle for a long time, the time in the ocean world was originally longer than the outside world. Therefore, the amount of spirit stones they consumed during cultivation was much more than Xiren and Shangguan Yinging. Under such circumstances, they could only save spirit stones. It was impossible for them to use spirit stones to exchange for a more comfortable residence. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang handed the healing medicine to the counter, she had not received any news from the counter. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but go to the counter again. The woman in front of the counter was still Sweet Dream. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang come, Sweet Dream's face revealed a look of understanding. Obviously, she had already guessed the purpose of Bailey Hongzhuang's visit. Young Master D, I have already helped you put your healing medicine up for sale. However, no one is interested. I advise you to take it back. I'm afraid this healing medicine won't be able to be sold. Sweet Dream went straight to the point. From the moment Bailey Hongzhuang handed the healing medicine to her to sell, she had already expected this situation. Until now, half a month had passed, but no one was interested at all. For a moment, she felt a little ridiculous in her heart. Listening to Sweet Dream's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's brows furrowed silently. She didn't expect that the situation would be like this. She had never succeeded. She had enough confidence in the effects of her healing medicine. She believed that as long as someone bought a set of healing medicine, they would discover its benefits. Unfortunately, the healing medicine that she put out now was obviously not something that anyone would want. However, this was understandable. After all, she was only an ordinary cultivator who lived on the second floor and was not a doctor. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't think that a poor person like her would have any good treasures on her. Without waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to speak, Sweet Dream had already taken out the 10 bottles of healing pills that Bailey Hongzhuang had entrusted to her. It was obvious that she had no interest in continuing to help Bailey Hongzhuang sell medicinal pills. Take it. As soon as she finished speaking, Sweet Dream no longer looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. She only lowered her head and minded her own business. Seeing Sweet Dream's actions, Bailey Hongzhuang did not take it to heart and continued, "I'll have to trouble you to continue to help me sell these medicinal pills," but before Bailey Hongzhuang could finish speaking, Sweet Dream had already frowned. A thick sense of impatience appeared on her face. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.